when Don left after 5 years, I was very nervous. And there was a lady from TV Guide came in there, and she said, what are you going to do when Don left? I told them not to send them over there, because they said, wanted to know what we were going to do when Don left. And I said, I don't know what we're going to do when Don leaves, so there's no point in them coming over here. She came anyway. And I didn't feel good that day, and I was reading a bad script, and I really didn't have anything to say to her. And she came in here, I said, what you going to do when Don leaves? And I said, I don't know what we're going to do when Don leaves. And I got up and left, and she wrote it just that way. Best article ever written on me. She said he got up and left and didn't even say I appreciate it.
If you're going to entertain and you have to go on a stage or in front of a television camera, you have to set aside, for the moment, what's happening personally. Sure, there are times you have a lot of things on your mind, but strangely enough, once you get out there and it starts to roll and the audience reacts and you get the laughs, you set everything aside.
Do you?
And you do the show. You may have a terrible letdown after the show. That's one of the problems of something like this. You have these big mood swings.
Well, Charlie Norton was a problem. You know, when I made that film Jamaica, it took a whole morning to get one close-up. He was a nice man, a charming man, he really was. But oh, he suffered so much because, you know, he felt he couldn't get it out. And we were a whole morning on the one close-up until he got up and he was crying in the corner. And I went over, sort of patted him on the shoulder. He looked up at me and said, aren't you and I a couple of babies? And I wanted me. I mean, I wanted to use a gold witness and say, include me out, you know. So finally he came back and did it, you see. He said, all right. I said, yes, Charles, fine. It wasn't all that different from the other close-ups, you see. And then he took me aside and put his arm around my shoulder and said, you know how I got it, don't you? I said, no, Charles. How? He said, I thought of myself as a small boy of 10 wetting my knickers.
The villain has so many sides. I do a lecture around the country. I've been a lecturer for about 20 years now. And I do a lecture now on the history of villainy. They're always the best parts, you know. Yes. It's that marvelous thing of Gene Kerr's, the snake has all the lines, you know. Adam and Eve just stand there, but the snake's got all the lines. And the villain is usually such a many-faceted character. He's a very interesting person to study. There are all kinds of villains. There's the villain that is a villain in spite of himself. There is the villain who is a born villain, I mean, the kind who sort of were born that way. And then there are villains that are the most interesting ones, I think, who are turned to evil by fate, really, by the wounds, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Is this what led you into playing in horror movies, or is that a totally different kind of thing?
Well, you know, none of us who were in those films, Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone, and all of us that have been in them, really think of them as horror films. I think of a horror film as a film that really frightens me about everyday life. The stories of violence, the stories of gangsterism in the old days.
Clockwork Orange, that kind of thing.
That's right, yes. I think of that. Because most of the stories that I've done have been based on the tales by de Maupassant, Edgar Allan Poe, and Hawthorne, and things like that. And they're really classic kind of Gothic tales. And I think Boris felt that way, too. I mean, certainly Frankenstein was one of the great novels of its time.
We know that fashions in plays and in films and in stories change. They go in cycles, then they die out, then they come back again. But this kind of story, not of necessity the monster, but this kind of story seems to go on forever. And I've often wondered if the real reason isn't that it's the oldest kind of story in the world, really, that it has its roots very deep in the legends and the fairy tales and the folklore of every race in the world, and has a universal appeal. And I think that's why they go on.
You talk about Chinese boxing. How does it differ from, say, our kind of boxing?
Well, first we use the feet.
That's
and then we use the elbow. And
use the thumb too?
You name it, man. We
use it all.
You have to, you see, because, I mean, that is the expression of the human body. I mean, everything. I mean, you know, not just the hand. And when you're talking about combat, Well, I mean, if it is a sport, now you're talking about something else. You have regulations, you have rules. But when you're talking about fighting as it is,
No rules.
with no rules.
Not real fighting.
Well, then, baby, you better train every part of your body. And when you do punch, now I'm leaning forward a little bit, hoping not to hurt any camera angle. I mean, you got to put the whole hip into it and snap it and get all your energy in there and make this into a weapon.
I loved being a Mouseketeer. It was just the greatest experience. We had our crushes, you know, with some of the other Mouseketeers.
Oh, now we're getting older, are we?
No, this is when we were 12 and 13. Of course.
Who was your first crush?
It was Mouseketeer Lonnie.
Mouseketeer Lonnie?
Yes. A gorgeous-looking blonde guy, big pump. And he was real great. He was a wonderful singer and a great dancer, and he seemed very mature for his age. And I fell for him like a ton of bricks. He got my first kiss.
Aha!
Yes. It was real heavy stuff.
What do you think about the Beatles? Would be around?
I think the only reason that these fellows might not possibly be around in the next few years is the fact that there are 4 of them, if you know what I'm saying. When Presley broke through, he was just one individual, you know, from which to work, to go into romantic type situations or whatever his calling was going to be. With the 4 boys, excuse me, from England, if they can do, let's say once a year, what they did this year with A Hard Day's Night, the motion picture, if they do not step out of their own milieu, so to speak, I think they'll be around for 1,001 years. Because I think they're brilliant.
Everybody, one way or another, has some, I think, connection with it. A kid watching the show, his father, a brother who had another brother in the service, or fellows that were in the service. The women have a definite connection to it. It's a contemporary thing of which we're all a part of. That may have something to do with it.
You suppose that people these days have a preoccupation with war, perhaps, with the unsettled world scene?
Well, that too. There's been a lot of talk of, they thought the series wouldn't go over because people want to avoid any more seeing war shows. They hit it with the headlines every day, but that apparently hasn't hurt us at all. The other show, Gallant Men, did not make it, and this one did, so it's tough to tell exactly what it is. It could be production, it could be people, it could be stories, it could be direction, time slot, a million things.
You've been favored with very fine critical reviews, both for your acting and the other stars in the show and the direction of it, the whole thing, haven't you?
Oh, yes, all over the country. It's been tremendously complimentary.
Science fiction had not been done quite that way. Man had not yet gone to the moon. They didn't land on the moon till after we were canceled 3 years later. My own father, the night Star Trek came on the air, went around and apologized to all the neighbors, you know. I know the boy is up to something crazy, but he'll come back and do a good American show.
We were all learning a lesson, even though we were being entertained.
So that's what writing is really about, whether it's a Star Trek or a Western or anything else. The man has to intertwine it into the story, but that really is what writing is about, and that's the difference between bad and good writing. That's the difference between classics and stuff you throw away.
In the meantime, gave a script to Bill to read and said, if you like this, why don't you let Lizzie take a look at it? Why don't you let her read it? So he read it, handed it to me, and I saw Once Upon a Time, and I said, I love it. He said, aren't you going to finish it? I said, oh, yeah, it might be a good idea. So I did, we did, there it was, 8 years, you know.
Any comments from your father about it?
I think he enjoyed it. He really, I think he did. I hope, in a way, just being bitchy, I really hope he kind of was sorry that he didn't narrate the first one. He never said he was. And he came out to visit the set a couple of times. And at one point, his name came up for Daddy. And I thought that was too close to home. No, I didn't think that was right. And so we got Morris Evans instead, who was really perfect. I mean, it would have been fun, but he wasn't very well at that point, though. And then he got all right again. But I mean, he'd been slightly ill before then. But that would have been fun. I would have liked that.
What you're asking is why we do what we do in life, and that's one of the toughest things in the world to answer.
Well, I know why I do this. Do you know why you did that?
Well, I don't...
Fame?
I wasn't looking for anything but just a way to make a living.
So I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could. Now, why'd you do that dopey thing over the the Snake River? I remember that.
Well, why would you call that dopey?
Because you knew you weren't going to make it.
No, that's not so. I thought I was going to make it.
Isn't that a rocket thing?
I was tied into it. They thought I'd make it across very easily. I had a malfunction on blastoff.
Whoa, it looks like a good one. Whoa. Oh, Evil, stay with the bird. He looks like he's... Whoa, there's been a mistake. He looks like he's going into the canyon.
But you really felt that you were going to make it, huh?
Well, I waited 7 years, and it cost me $2 million. You don't think I did it just to go in the middle of the canyon, do you?
No, but you made a lot of money on that, did you?
Yeah. Maybe that was dopey. I made about $20 million on it.
$20 million on that thing?
No, my business, all you needed to do was be alive to collect when it was over.
That's right. But see, when I saw you doing I can understand the motorcycle jumps in Vegas. I've been to the Hell's Canyon, and I said, you're going to put them in a rocket? She's never going to make it over there. And then when the thing malfunctioned, you got out with the parachute, I said, but you made $20 million doing that?
Probably more. The toys, the Evel Knievel toys and the pinball machines and the bicycles and everything were going very well at that time, and it just skyrocketed.
And that was the thing that catapulted you in the fame category.
Royalties from it. I think the toy did over $300 million in 1970.
You grew up in a great tradition of songwriting where there's endless supply of wonderful material, all these wonderful songwriters. Does that still happen with what the kids are writing now?
Not really, no. Even the younger people several years ago, like the Jimmy Webbs and those kids who came along, they stopped also. They stopped writing. I don't understand why they stopped. And it's difficult for me to find the kind of material I do. It's the only kind I know what to do, you know. And obviously rock is out of the question. I don't understand how to do that. And if I did, I'd be afraid to do it, as a matter of fact.
You swing like mad, surely.
But that's a different kind of swing. It's called jazz, you know.
It's the feeling for the lyric that brings... Is that what takes you into a song?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Good question, too, because there have been many times when I've set a recording session and material is brought in, and my God, you read some of the lyrics and you say, no, I don't want to say that, because it's so shallow. Some of the lyrics are pretty bad.
So I made myself part of the audience. I didn't act like I was doing them a favor. I even do it on stage. I've seen entertainers act like they're doing you a favor by singing for you, which is wrong. If you make them feel that they're really part of you, I don't know. Everybody honks their horn at me. I get almost so many wrecks going down the street, going downtown. Yeah, this is Dean Martin, and they go boom. They hear a fender or something. But for it to go on that long it's pretty good. As I say, the good Lord, and that is no corn. I'm not saying I don't have talent. I can do everything, but I can't do everything really, really good.
To many, Chuck Connors is no one but Lucas McCain, the Rifleman. The series has been out of production for 19 years now, but worldwide syndication has brought on a new surge of popularity, according to Connors, enough to convince him to begin trying to get the Rifleman onto the big screen.
There seems to be a trend in the country, a feeling that they'd like to get back to some of those kind of properties on television and the movies that had some kind of a deeper meaning for the social structure of the country and the family life. And although The Rifleman was pretty violent Western, it was covered beautifully by the fact that the relationship between a father and son, same thing as any parent or any child, was very important.
Mark, money's nothing but paper and green ink. The thing that gives it value is how it's earned.
What would you change about your image?
Well, why change now? What is that? Well, I wouldn't know how to change. I mean, I'm far from perfect, Kathy. I got a lot of faults, but there, you know, you got to take the warts and blemishes with all the beauty that surrounds me.
But I came out of places where irreverence was a part of the deal. Coffee houses and folk rooms, you know, the whole idea there was to be a little bit anti-establishment, to be a little bit against the stream, you know. So I came out of that and always felt comfortable being alone. Always felt good as a kid. Loved it when my mother didn't come home on time. Boy, I'd say, oh, this is nice, man. I'll make some spaghetti and listen to the Lone Ranger, you know. To be alone is good. And I never really took part in show business. I'd show up. I didn't really contribute, you know, like they'd put me in the bunny number. You had to do the variety shows and they get you in the bunny number at the end. I had to do a little of that, but once I turned the corner, I left.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, when you were around, like, bad comedy.
Yeah.
Not even bad comedy, just that other shit.
Yeah, right. That big lame thing.
There's this thing you do, and then there's that other shit.
That's right. And I lived through, listen, the hardest years of my life were the 3 or 4 years when I was doing straight, mainstream, bullshit television shows, because I thought I wanted to be like a Danny Kaye or something. My dream from a kid was still like that. I wanted to be in the movies and go like this for people, and I didn't know that my head...
Like this?
I didn't know my head was different. I didn't understand that. I thought, if I thought about it at 9 years of age, it must still be valid when I'm 21. But it wasn't, and I finally, boom, that clicked in from the acid. Thank God for acid.
Do you have a tough time performing if the audience is very rowdy?
I don't know what you mean by that. I have a tough time performing, period.
I know, I agree.
I get very nervous until I know what I'm doing, because audiences can turn on you. And they never build an exit on stage, you know. And you have to work without a net.
Yeah.
And so there you are. You're up there.
How long is your show?
It depends.
Well,
sometimes it goes 20 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half.
Yeah. And that's what I do.
Sometimes you ever do an hour and a half worth of material in 20 minutes?
Yeah. You know, it's amazing. You can...
Even the audience is not with it, they'd be talking about.
George Gobel called it the trout look. But there is an interesting phenomenon you can do. Let's say if you're working constantly for 2 months, I mean, I personally fall into a routine, you know, and you really know the act, and you can go out and do the same act, and it'll be 10 minutes shorter one night, or 10 minutes longer, or depending on how much you add.
The rhythm and stuff gets going. You ever do 2 shows a night, like, and forget? You say, did I say this already? Have I done this? And you be right in the middle of it, and you go, oh, Lord. I've done this, I know I've done that. But if they don't laugh again, because some people go, you did that!
Just want to see if he's listening. That's what I see.
You're losing your mind?
Have you sort of lost your appetite for playing before live audiences, Bogey?
Well, I have, Ed, because I did an awful lot of it when I was a kid. I started in 21, and I was in 7 smash hits in a row, and I thought the world was my oyster, and I came to Hollywood, and it was a terrible flop here, and then I went back to New York and was in 4 big flops there, and I swore if I ever got to Hollywood again, I'd stay here. I like it here, and so I think I have lost my appetite for the Broadway theater. I think possibly maybe a little ambition, because I believe that ambition belongs to youth.
Oh, that's the Oscar for the African Queen, isn't it?
That sure is.
With John Huston directing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bogey, are you going to make any more pictures with Huston?
Yes, we have a project in mind. Until you get up the money, it's always called a project. The Man Who Would Be King by Rudyard Kipling, which I think John wants to shoot in India, some inaccessible part of India, probably the most inaccessible part, because he likes to shoot where it's almost impossible to shoot. If he could get a camera on top of Mount Everest, he'd have one there, believe me.
Betty, every once in a while I see a reference to you as the Look. How did you earn that perceptive title?
Well, the Look, Ed, came along at the same time as the Legs and the Leer and the whatever, what have you. The Look, the From Down Under look, as Mr. Bogart named it, came in a very odd fashion. It came because I was so nervous when I started to work in pictures that I felt that the only way to steady myself was to give the look, which is this.
Miss McCall, what do you consider the best picture you were ever in?
Well, the best picture I ever was in was, well, for sentimental reasons, To Have and Have Not, and for other reasons, I suppose, How to Marry a Millionaire.
I never went beyond the 6th grade. That's one of my hang-ups. No, really. I have a great insecurity about that.
What do you have hang-ups? You don't have
Yeah, that's the only one I have. The only one. And I know me. I've never had to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Because I feel if you have 1 ounce of good sense and 1 good friend, you'll never have to go to a psychiatrist.
In 1970, ABC created the sitcom The Odd Couple, and then 2 years before that, you and Walt Matthau starred in the motion picture version.
Right, yeah.
Were you approached to do The Odd Couple on television?
Yes, I think we both were, Walter and I. Neither of us really wanted to do it.
For any special reason?
Well, I didn't want to get, I know for me, I would hate the thought of being, no matter how great the part was, being tied down every week with a series which really would prohibit being able to do anything else.
Did you like what Clodman and Randall did?
I thought they were both terrific, and I thought they grew in the parts together beautifully as time went on. They got better and better. They were just wonderful, I thought.
How sweet it is! I knew that nobody could be on television week after week as themselves and exist for any length of time, because no one has that rich a personality where they can show up as themselves every week. So I knew that I had to create some characters.
Is it true that you literally didn't rehearse a lot of those things and just...
I didn't rehearse at all. I would sit and have a stand-in walk through, unless there was some difficult move that we had to, that necessitated my getting up and getting in it. And I wouldn't have worked that way if it upset Connie or Meadows, but as I've told you before, they could do a show in the middle of the Civil War and it wouldn't bother.
But tell me about it.
Well, my granddaddy told me if I picked 50 pounds by noon, I could quit for the day. And I hated picking cotton worse than anything in the world.
I know, I've been there.
So I got out early when it was wet. You know, it would weigh more when it was wet. So I got as much as I could possibly get, and Daddy had always told me never to put a rock in my sack because it would catch the gin on fire. But I wanted to quit it now. So I filled my sack full of rocks, and I went to the wagon and emptied it myself so nobody would know that I put any rocks in it. But I left a few in there and I didn't know it. So Daddy took the cotton to the gin, and the gin was inside of our house, and I sat on the front porch and I saw the smoke.
You set your house on fire.
Set the gin on fire. When it went up that aluminum or metal pipe, whatever it is, when they suck the cotton up through there, it caused sparks and it caught the gin on fire. Well, it takes like 1,300 or 1,400 pounds to make a bale of cotton, and I think it burned up about 400 pounds. But I saw Daddy get on the tractor and start toward the house, so I started running. And his only comment was, the faster you run, the harder I whip when I catch you. So I fell and I cut my knee, and I thought, well, maybe that'll help. You know? So I snubbed, I cried, I did everything, and nothing helped. And he wore me out. Whipped me awful.
He's on the boards at Carnegie Hall in New York on the 12th of June, which I know is going to be a big night. Congratulations, Don, and happy 70th birthday, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Well, that's about it.
No, that's not about it.
And it's not 50 years. Give me a break. It's 40. I'm not in the business 50 years.
Listen, kids.
Jolson was in the business 50 years, and he's not around.
70 years old. That's a milestone, huh? Congratulations on that.
We're going to have services?
No, we're not going to have services, but you know I like you a great deal, and I know you had a wonderful party, and all your friends were there, and I think it's terrific.
Yeah, well, you were on the list, but it was touch and go.
No, it wasn't.
Your name came up, and I went, forget it. We don't need it. He doesn't pick it up any. Anyway, it's great to be 70. Hey, it's how you feel.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I feel damn old, I swear to God.
No, you don't.
I get up in the morning and say, the leg's not moving. But I feel great. I feel great.
You know what's interesting? I turned 60 the weekend that you turned 70. I don't feel 60, and I'm sure you don't feel 70. I think I'm about 25 years old. I mean, I feel terrific, and I still have
But you don't look good, Tom.
I know I don't, Don. I don't have your genes.
I'm going to lie to you. You don't look good. You got to lay down. You got to get a checkup.
But like you, have great enthusiasm for your work. You still get a charge out of what you do.
Today I don't, I don't get a kick out of running up and down the stage and wheezing and spitting up and hanging out in the wings going, why does the family keep asking me for checks? You know, the wife just sits there with the jewelry signaling ships. Anyway, so I gotta be nice. And I mean, it's not easy, Tom. When you got a Jewish family, they're always there with, waiting for the money. You know what I mean?
George Foreman, he's good and he's strong. He hits real hard, but before he hits you, he draws his punches back and he warns you. He says, like, I'm getting ready to hit you with the right hand. He'll go, watch out, I'm getting ready to hit you with the left. And by the time, let me tell you, he will not listen. Somebody told me George Foreman was awful strong. I said he should try band roll-on. That's the deodorant.
Ali, thank you very much indeed for joining us again in this program.
Thank everybody.
Congratulations on the award.
Out there. I thank all of you for taking time to listen to me. I love my fans in England, and I consider you #1, and I'm going to get the title back to prove all of you right for giving me this award. Thank you.
Everyone knows that you're married to Robert Wagner. I mean, I don't have to tell you. There's a song called The Second Time Around, and you guys have been married twice to each other.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen too often to people. How did he propose the first time? Because he's so proper.
He's so wonderful. He's very romantic. The very first time, I say the very first time, like there were many others, but the first time as opposed to the second time, we had some champagne, and I suddenly looked in my glass, and there was a ring in it. And I took the ring out and looked, and he said, look, I said, my God, what is this? And then he said, look on the inside, and it said, marry me.
That is neat. That is neat. Marry me, not will you.
Not will you,
I mean,
no.
too many words in there would be cluttering up the thing, but marry me, oh, that's classy. The second time?
Well, the second time,
Same ring. He just put again after that.
Again.
Marry me
Right.
again. What did he do the second time?
Well, no, the second time was different, but on anniversaries, we were in Paris one year, celebrating our 1-year anniversary, and he did the same thing again with a ring. We were in a beautiful restaurant, and we ordered champagne, and I said, what's sitting in this? I should have remembered, you know, but he does do wonderful things.
You said earlier that it became boring to stay with that group. Why is what you're doing now not boring when that was?
Because I can change musicians whenever I like. And it tends to get into a format, you know, because we were together much longer than the public knew us. You know, it wasn't just from '64. I was 24 in '64, and I've been playing with Paul since I was 15. And he's very nice. and George about a year later or something. So it's a long time we spent together in all the most extraordinary circumstances, from, you know, lousy rooms to great rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't just the public just think, oh, you were only together 5 years, we've only got 5 million records, you know. But we were together a long, long time, and we just became stale musically.
But how are you not stale musically now, aside from changing
because
musicians?
I'm interacting with different musicians. To me, they're musicians. They're not just, you know, it's not like, to people, they're all stars, right? It's like having Elton John and Elvis and a few people playing, you know. To me, it isn't. It's just musicians, and to them, it's the same. So if you play with the same person all the time, you get into a rut. Even if you play tennis with the same person.
It's boring.
It comes to a time when you know every move, and you have to find somebody else to play with.
Fame is also a burden. An industry, I don't think, should behave like, let's say, a mother whose child maybe has, let's just say the worst is run out in front of a car. So what do they do to the child? But instead of clasping the child to them, they start beating up on the child. They feel that it gives them some kind of a privilege to walk up to you and say anything to you. So at least it's something that, let's say, I experienced. So it's not just that, okay, fame will go by. You know, so long, I've had you, fame. If it goes by, I told you it was fickle.
I think very often when a husband and wife reach that point, it's because they don't have anything to talk about, really, except the surface conversation about, well, what happened with the kids today, and there can only be so many variations on that theme, and what happened at the office. I think A wife needs to have, and oh gosh, I'll probably get in trouble saying this, but I really do think more wives should investigate the possibilities of working. Because I agree with Betty Friedan in her point of view in her book, The Feminine Mystique, that women are, or should be, human beings first, women second, wives and mothers third. It should fall in that order, and that if there's enough thought and effort put into this attempt, that it will not hurt the family, it will not hurt the work, that they can function very nicely together. I'm proving it.
What kind of disguise do you wear?
I've tried them all.
What?
Well, I wore hats and sunglasses. That's what the Blues Brothers have.
Big deal.
But, I mean, I've used almost kind of every disguise.
I mean, you put on a beard? Did you dress up as
I've used it on
Tooth
Saturday
Fairy?
Night.
Do you do something like that?
I've used all that on Saturday Night Live. I've used all that
I've
stuff.
seen him hang out at cab zone and wave at people, though. He's like a goodwill ambassador.
Are you guys friends when you're not working together? Do you spend much time?
I haven't seen him in a month.
You have land that abuts in Martha's Vineyard. It's well known that you live there.
Well,
the hard work.
we the Berkshires, actually.
Okay, you live in the Berkshires.
Yeah, we live in the Berkshires.
Both live outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and you have two big estates next to each other.
Yeah, we see each other.
Are you not working?
Yes, we are.
What do you do when you're not...
Kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits. When you don't make a movie, you just finished Neighbors. That was a long job. You got up early, you worked late, you worked hard, you had a lot of travail making that movie. Okay. Now it's over. You get up in the morning, Belushi, and you say, what am I going to do today? How am I going to spend the day?
That's what I do.
That's what he does. He is full of creative angst.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy, you sit down in a restaurant, he's going to break up matches, he's going to break up toothpicks, chopsticks. He's got a creative energy that, you see, I have the writing.
You got a reason to get up in the morning. You got this gig, you know?
Yeah, but what about you? You don't have a reason to get up in the morning?
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll go to like a record store.
Just to check out the sales, no doubt.
No, sure.
Buy old records. It disturbs him to be idle, I must say. Yeah, it does.
Does it disturb you to be an idol?
To be an idol?
Yeah. Does it disturb you that so many people know you and grab you and recognize you?
Yeah, you feel like a freak.
Yeah, but he has to learn to deal with it. You got to relate to it like you're running for Congress.
I love it. It's wonderful. No,
you really don't like it, do you?
No, I don't like it.